Shalom. This morning I did some final tweaks on this Torah portion, Korach, and just reflecting on the whole Torah portion in relation to what we've learned last week and also what I'm going to insert this week. Now, as I said earlier this week, I am finishing off the 11 enemies, so I'm going to do number 9, 10 and 11. I'm going to touch on number 8 again, because that laid the foundation of the storyline continuing. And what's amazing to me is when I look at the enemies and I look at the gematria and I look at the meaning of the names and I look at the regions where they are at. So it took me a while to read the history and find out where they were situated in the land and some history about them, just to get an idea of what they were about. And that highlights and indicated really what they were all about. Now, what's fascinating is that last time we looked at enemies from the point of view of opposing Israel to enter the land, to enter the city, to take the birthright, to attack the newborn, and also to guard the threshold, which has to do with the marriage covenant and fulfillment of the covenant of Abraham. So all those enemies opposed or will oppose Israel, or currently opposing Israel. And we also saw two of the enemies. They were found in the wilderness as well as in the promised land. The one specifically that's associated with one of these new enemies is the one that connects to Egypt. So they pop out their head again in enemy number 11, which is basically the end of the 1,000 years, where the Battle of Gog and Magog is happening, Revelation 20, Zechariah 14 storyline, and all of those things coincide with the gematria that's in enemy number 11. But that also then flow into this Torah portion, which is Korach or Korah. And this Torah portion starts with Korah took. Now you wonder, what is Korah taking? What is he taking that he does not have at this point in time? Now, in context of who Korah was, he was a Levite, he's a Kohathite, he was one of the renowned people who carried all the most holy, most important artifacts of the tabernacle, including the Ark of the Covenant. So he already had the highest position below the high priest and below Moshe in the congregation of Israel. And yet he wanted to take something. Now you can see it from two points of views. He wanted to take the authority or the position of the high priest as well as the prophet, which is Moshe. And he thought to himself that he is greater than them. Now, where do we see that spirit? Where do we see that same language in the scripture? We read about it when he described the king that is the picture of Hasatan, of Lucifer, who elevated himself above the clouds, above the Almighty, above the throne of Yahweh, and he wanted to rule in the place of Yahweh. Now we see the same enemy that's sitting behind this, where that enemy is trying to take hold of the highest authority in this realm regarding Yahweh's kingdom. And that is where the spirit of Korach, what he was trying to take, is revealed. The other thing that he is taking, if you think about him being part of the Levites, part of a very important function within the household of Yahweh, and as a redeemed person, he no longer belonged to himself. So if he's taking Korach, he's taking himself for himself away from Yahweh's ownership. So he is taking back his ownership and placed it under the authority of Korach, under his own authority, or the self. So the self now becomes more important than Yahweh. And that is the seed of rebellion. The seed of rebellion is the ego or the self rising up within every individual. It was the seed of rebellion that rose up within Lucifer. And it's not something that Yahweh placed there. It's an attribute of the entity that Yahweh created, because of the abilities that they have in relation to the glory and the power of Yahweh. And then they look at themselves, how glorious they are, and they see how glorious Yahweh's kingdom is, and then they say, oh, I can manage this, I can rule this, I can give this a go. And then you need to take the current authority out of its throne and then take over. It's like a military coup or civil war, so to speak. And that happened in heaven, and that is happening now in the camp. So is this being sparked by Hasatan? I don't think so. And the reason I'm saying that is because when I read the storyline, I ended with the last enemy, number 11. And that storyline talks about an evil king. And then there was a great king who was after the heart of Yahweh. And his son then became evil again. And then the son was taken captive, or he went to Egypt and he died there. And his throne was taken up by his brother, who also did evil in the eyes of Yahweh. And he actually taxed Yahweh's people and let the money flow back to Egypt. He was under the authority of Pharaoh. Now Pharaoh is the ruler of Mitzrayim, which is sin and bondage. And sin and bondage is an attribute of the flesh, not the Nachash. So Egypt is a function that exists in us. We can spark it and bring it back to life through this seed of rebellion, the self that is standing up. And I see that in the last enemy, which is part of the news cycle. And there will be a new enemy which will spark up yet again, not this time from Hasatan, but this time from the self. So I'll leave you with that. All the detail about this teaching we will discuss tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Have a great day. Shalom.